All right, so today we're diving into something that's pretty crucial for homeowners, especially here in Toronto, and that is basement flooding.
Oh, yeah, a big one.
Yeah, imagine coming home after a heavy rainstorm
Yeah.
and you find your basement's completely underwater.
Yeah, not a fun situation.
Not fun at all. It could be a real nightmare for homeowners, and unfortunately here in Toronto,
Uh,
it's a risk for a lot of folks.
yeah, especially with some of those older sewer systems that we have in some parts of the city.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that the city's actually stepping up to help out.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they have a program called the Basement Flooding Protection Subsidy Program. And this program is designed to give homeowners some financial assistance to help them take measures to protect their basements from flooding.
That's great to hear because that can be a really costly thing to deal with.
Absolutely. And we're going to break down all the details of this program in this deep dive. We're going to cover everything you need to know, like what it covers, who's eligible, and even some tips on how to choose the right contractor and make sure everything's done properly. Yeah, sounds good.
So if you own a home in Toronto, whether it's a single-family house, a duplex, or even a triplex, this deep dive is for you.
Definitely worth paying attention to this.
All right, let's get started. So this program, this Basement Flooding Protection Subsidy Program, it can provide homeowners with up to $3,400.
Wow, that's significant.
Yeah, it is. And they can use this money towards installing different flood protection devices. So let's talk about what those devices are.
Yeah, let's break it down.
Okay, first up, we have the backwater valve. Have you heard of these?
Oh, yeah, backwater valves are essential.
They are. And think of it kind of like a bouncer for your basement, keeping the unwanted stuff out.
Exactly. It's a one-way gate on your sewer line. So wastewater can flow out, but if there's a backup in the city system, it prevents that sewage from flowing back up into your basement.
Right, so it's like a safety net. Now, the program will cover 80% of the cost of installing a backwater valve, up to a maximum of $1,250.
It is a pretty good deal, but there are a few things to keep in mind. It has to be installed by a licensed plumber,
Oh, of course.
and it has to pass inspection by a City of Toronto building inspector to qualify for that subsidy.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And while you're at it, think about adding an alarm to that backwater valve.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it'll let you know if it's been activated.
Because if the valve's closed, you can't use any plumbing fixtures.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
You could end up with a different kind of flood.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
Okay, so that's the backwater valve. Next up, we have the sump pump.
Ah, the trusty sump pump.
Yes. Now, if you live in an area with a high water table, or if your basement tends to get damp, a sump pump is your best friend.
Yeah, it's essential in those situations.
It is. And basically, it sits in a pit in your basement.
Mm-hmm.
And when the water level gets too high, it automatically kicks on and pumps that water away.
Keeps things dry.
Exactly. And the city offers 80% coverage for the cost of a sump pump, up to a maximum of $750.
Wow, that's even more than the backwater valve.
Oh. It is. And that includes an alarm and a backup power source.
Oh, that's so important.
It is, because imagine a big storm hits. The power goes out, and your sump pump stops working.
That's when you really need it.
Exactly. So a battery backup can be a lifesaver in those situations.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of things to keep in mind with the sump pump. First, you want to make sure it's the right size for your basement.
Right.
A plumber can help you figure that out.
Definitely get a professional opinion on that.
Yeah. And second, you want to make sure that the discharge pipe, where the water gets pumped out, is at least 2 meters away from your foundation wall.
Oh, yeah, you don't want that water just coming right back.
Exactly. You want to give it somewhere to go.
Makes sense.
Okay, so we've covered backwater valves and sump pumps. The last device covered by this program is a little less glamorous, but just as important, and that is foundation drain severance and capping.
Now, this is something that a lot of homeowners might not be familiar with.
Yeah, you're right. And a lot of older homes in Toronto have these things called foundation drains. They're also known as weeping tiles.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of those.
And they're basically pipes that run around the base of your foundation, collecting groundwater and directing it to the city's sewer system.
Right.
But here's the problem. If the city's sewer system gets overloaded during a heavy rainfall, that water can actually backflow into your foundation drains and flood your basement.
Oh, I see. So it's kind of a backdoor for the flooding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So severing and capping those foundation drains essentially disconnects your home's drainage system from the city system.
So you're eliminating that backflow risk.
Exactly. And the city will subsidize 80% of the cost of this work, up to $400.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, it is. But keep in mind that this is just for the severing capping part. Any other work on your foundation drains, like repairs or replacing them, isn't covered by the subsidy.
Right, so it's specifically for that disconnection.
Exactly. All right, so we've talked about the devices. Let's talk about who can actually take advantage of this program.
Yeah, who's eligible for this?
Well, first off, you have to be the registered owner of the property.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the property has to be located within the city of Toronto.
Of course.
Now, there are a few other requirements. The property has to be an existing home, so new construction or major renovations aren't eligible.
So it's really for people who are already living in their homes and facing this risk.
Exactly. And there's a lifetime limit on how much you can receive for each type of device. So even if you replace a backwater valve multiple times over the years, there's a cap on how much funding you can get.
Oh, so you can't just keep claiming it over and over again.
Right. It's not unlimited.
Okay, good to know.
Another important requirement is that your downspouts, the pipes that carry rainwater from your roof, have to be disconnected from the city's sewer system.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because if all that rainwater is going to the sewer.
Yeah, it's just adding to the volume during a storm.
Exactly. And that can contribute to those overflows that can back up into basements.
So by disconnecting them, you're helping to reduce the strain on the system.
Yeah, it's exactly. Now, the city doesn't offer a subsidy for disconnecting downspouts. You can apply for an exemption if there's a physical barrier that prevents you from safely disconnecting them.
Okay, so there are some exceptions.
Yes, there are. And one more thing. All paved areas in your front yard, like parking pads, have to comply with the city's zoning bylaw requirements.
So you can't just pave over your whole front yard.
Basically, yeah, you can't have so much pavement that rainwater can't soak into the ground.
It's all about managing that rainwater responsibly.
Exactly. So if you're thinking about putting in a big concrete driveway, make sure you check those zoning bylaws first.
Good advice.
All right, so let's say you've checked all the boxes, you've had the flood protection devices installed by a licensed contractor, and you're ready to apply for that subsidy. What do you do next?
Well, you got to get your paperwork in order.
Paperwork, always fun.
Yeah, you'll need those original invoices from your contractor, clearly marked as paid in full, with a breakdown of the work done and the cost. And if you installed a backwater valve, you'll need the building permit number and inspection report.
Got it. And don't wait too long to submit that application.
No, you've got 1 year from the installation date. And remember, these subsidies are given out on a first-come, first-served basis.
Oh, wow, so you got to be quick.
And they're subject to available funding, so apply early.
Good to know.
Now, I know some people might be thinking about doing the installation themselves, to save a few bucks.
Yeah.
But trust me, when it comes to something as important as flood protection, it's worth hiring a licensed contractor.
Absolutely. You want to make sure those devices are installed properly.
And up to code.
Yeah, otherwise you could void your warranty. You could face fines from the city. Or even worse, you could still end up with a flooded basement.
Exactly. And, even if you've been lucky enough to avoid basement flooding so far, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Couldn't agree more.
Taking these steps now could save you a lot of trouble and money down the road.
For sure. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here in this first part. Let's do a quick recap before we move on.
Sounds good.
We talked about why flood prevention is so important, especially here in Toronto, where we have aging infrastructure and we're getting heavier rainfall, which is putting more homes at risk.
Yeah, that's a big concern.
It is. And we went through all the details of the Basement Flooding Protection Subsidy Program, what it covers, how much you can get back, and who's eligible to apply.
We've covered a lot of information.
We did, and we stressed the importance of hiring a licensed contractor and making sure those flood protection devices are properly installed and maintained.
Yeah, you can't skimp on that.
Nope. All right, so are you starting to see how this all ties together?
Definitely, it's all about protecting your home and your investment.
Exactly. By taking advantage of this program and installing these flood protection devices, you're significantly reducing your risk of ending up with a flooded basement.
Peace of mind right there.
It is peace of mind knowing that your home and your belongings are protected.
And did you know that some insurance companies actually offer discounts to homeowners who take steps to reduce their flood risk?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like a reward for being proactive.
That's fantastic.
Right.
So it's a win-win. You protect your home and potentially save on your insurance premiums.
Exactly.
Well, we've come to the end of our deep dive into flood prevention. We covered a lot of ground in these 3 parts, from those key flood protection devices to simple maintenance tips, to the importance of landscaping and even high-tech gadgets. We also talked about the importance of flood insurance as part of your overall protection plan. Remember, it's all about being proactive, taking those steps now to safeguard your home and your family. And as always, we've included links to additional resources on the City of Toronto's website, so you can learn even more about this important topic. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.